Hello, welcome to BBC World News. The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, has received the red carpet treatment in Washington, dramatically flying in from a war zone to meet President Biden at the White House. It's his first overseas trip since Russia invaded Ukraine in February. America is Kyiv's most important ally, and President Biden told Ukraine that the United States will stay with you as long as it takes, pledging another military aid package worth nearly $2 billion. Neda Tawfik reports.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky was embraced by U.S. lawmakers with a long-standing ovation as he entered the House chamber. Wearing his trademark military fatigues, he came here on this his first trip abroad since the start of Russia's invasion with a clear mission: to secure America's continued support for the ongoing war in his country. As Ukrainians brace for a potential new Russian winter offensive, President Zelensky told lawmakers the decisions of Congress could save Ukraine.
Financial assistance is also critically important, and I would like to thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for both financial packages you have already provided us with and the ones you may be willing to decide on. Your money is not charity. It's an investment in the global security.
Before he left, he gifted Congress a Ukrainian flag from soldiers fighting on the front lines. The Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, presented him with the American flag that flew over the Capitol Wednesday.
President Zelensky's address comes just as U.S. lawmakers prepare for another era of divided government. In less than 2 weeks, Republicans will take control of the House of Representatives, and some have already expressed opposition to what they call blank check funding for Ukraine. President Zelensky no doubt had them in mind during his speech, hoping they wouldn't block the future flow of aid.
For now, the aid is still flowing. During his meeting with President Biden, $1.85 billion in additional funding was announced.
300 days. Hard to believe, 300 days.
Along with plans to send Ukraine the most advanced air defense weapon in the U.S.'s arsenal, the Patriot missile system. And U.S. lawmakers are preparing to pass an additional $45 billion in emergency assistance, the largest amount yet.
This year has brought so much needless suffering and loss to the Ukrainian people. But I want you to know, President Zelensky, I want you to know that all the people of Ukraine to know as well. The American people have been with you every step of the way, and we will stay with you. We will stay with you.
President Zelensky is only the second wartime leader to address Congress since Winston Churchill in 1941. He will return directly back to Ukraine after this significant, if short, visit to prepare for the next phase of the war. Neda Tawfik, BBC News, Washington.
Let's go to Ukraine and talk to the BBC's Hugo Bashega, who's in Kyiv. First of all, Hugo, what are Ukrainians making of their president's trip across the Atlantic?
Well, they know it's very significant, very symbolic as well, because America has been the most important ally of the Ukrainians in this war. And they know it's really important for President Zelensky to be there. I think he had two main messages. One, to say thank you, thanks for your help. As we've heard from Nada in this report, the Americans have given $50 billion in aid to the Ukrainians in this war. Congress is now discussing another package of $50 billion in aid. So the Ukrainians know that it is important that President Zelensky's first foreign trip since the war started was America, was Washington. He was welcomed at the White House by President Biden. So very significant and obviously full of symbolism. A day after he went to Bakhmut, a frontline city here in Ukraine, he took a Ukrainian flag with him from soldiers in Bakhmut, presented Congress with that flag, and then made a very strong speech in English in which he told Republicans in particular that your money is not charity, it is investment.
And the Patriot missiles we heard about in that report, how critical could they be? They're incredibly advanced, but incredibly expensive, and presumably Ukraine would like many more.
Exactly. So the Ukrainians have been saying that this is exactly the kind of technology they need right now to protect this country from those Russian airstrikes. And occurring for weeks. We've been talking about these Russian attacks with missiles, with drones, targeting this country's essential infrastructure. Millions of people have been left without electricity and heating as temperatures across the country are below freezing. And I think President Biden yesterday talked about how Russia has been using winter as a weapon. President Zelensky, in his speech, said Ukrainians will be celebrating Christmas by candlelight because of those attacks. So the Ukrainians say that this is the kind of weapon they need to protect cities. It is going to take a little bit of time before these missiles arrive. Soldiers will have to be trained before these missiles come to the country. But again, the Ukrainians are very grateful, I think, that finally the Americans are sending this kind of technology so they can protect their cities from these Russian airstrikes.
Hugo, briefly, we saw the pictures of that flag from the front line at Bakhmut, the Ukrainian flag there presented in Congress. What is happening on that front line and how are the winter temperatures affecting the fighting there?
Well, this is the city where the fiercest battles are happening at this point. For months, the Russians have been trying to seize this city in the Donetsk region in the east of the country, and major losses on both sides. This was a city that before the war had 70,000 residents. Now just a handful of civilians or thousands of civilians are living there, and the entire city has been partially destroyed because of this, of the fighting that's been happening there. And this is where most of the fighting has been happening. The winter here, the weather has been a key factor. The Ukrainians are saying they're waiting for weather conditions to improve so they can resume their counteroffensive to take back territory that's now under Russian occupation. But Bakhmut has been the main focal point in this conflict where heavy battles are taking place.
Hugo, thank you very much. Hugo Bashiga in Kyiv.